I spent the last year adding online multiplayer to my 3D remake of Plants vs. Zombies. Here's how it all began. In my I made a Plants vs. Zombies but it's in 3D video, I promised you that if the video got popular enough and that if enough of you guys wanted me to make it, there would be a full remake of the original Plants vs. Zombies game. And you guys overwhelmed me, honestly. I used to receive comments each day asking me when the game will be done. So 2 months after the video was published, I decided to start remaking the full game. In that time, AsodiacAyve uploaded his remake of Plants vs. Zombies in 3D, from which I got a boost in views, which moved me over the edge to say, let's do this, let's make Plants vs. Zombies, I'm hyped now, let's do it. Arc 1, remaking the full game, 14 months ago. First order of business, from my last video I got a lot better at UI design, so I wanted to give the game an overall redesign. I took a massive inspiration from the original Plants vs. Zombies UI, since, you know, we're remaking the game. I decided to also go for a nice and clean vector art style instead of complicating it with pixel art. I wanted the art to be simple via not using colors or having a lot of details, but still distinct enough so you can tell which plant is which. And honestly, I think I got just about there. They're good enough to a point where I myself couldn't improve them anymore. Okay, now that the game's got a visual overhaul, I also needed to add some things I didn't have in the original remake. Since I didn't have to have a plant selection screen, I just decided not to make one. I mean, like you would know. So I ended up making the art for this picking screen at about this time as well. So after taking a long look into my code, I decided to rewrite all of it so that I can optimize it better for what I have to do. Here's an example. To add a new plant in the old remake, I had to: number 1, add a new seed pack; number 2, assign the plant to it; number 3, make its cooldown be correct; number 4, add the seed pack to the selection menu; number 5, change the picture of the plants for every single instance of the plant; and number 6, add it to the script that converts the seed into its seed pack. Phew, that's a lot of steps. After I optimized the codes, I needed to open an object, put in the image and the assigned plant, and the code would do the rest for me. There are a lot more of these small changes and optimizations I did, but overall they just made the development of the game 10 times quicker, which is always a plus in my books. I broke my to-do lists into the game's worlds. For World 1 I only had a few more things I had to add, so I got right into making the bucket hat zombie and the pole vaulting zombie, and the plants that were missing for World 1. Which, I will definitely agree, I was initially scared of starting to work on. These modules are so much more complex than the average pea shooter. The pea shooter looks like a black and white image against these guys. But at the end I did have a blast designing all of them. Okay, now I did lie a bit. There was one thing even scarier than these modules, and that's animating these modules. Everything from the Chomper's bite animation to the pole vaulting zombies jumping over animation, for which I had to code a custom script just so he doesn't break everything in the whole game and create a black hole that would suck everything into it. Okay, breathe. As I've mentioned before, the Chomper also needed a custom script, unlike the pea shooter, because he needs to count the amount of seconds he chews a zombie for, and I honestly, in the original remake, I only had to make one script for the pea shooter, and that was done. Now I have to create like 20 more scripts because all the plants have distinct things that they do. Don't even get me started on the cherry bomb. Ugh, makes me glad that's over. Since I was remaking the first world, that also meant I needed to recreate the funny walnut rolling minigame, or as the community calls it, walnut bowling minigame, and the conveyor belt levels from the game, which took longer than expected but ended up looking so good and being so much fun. I honestly just wanted to play around these levels and not do anything else forever, but you gotta do your work. Also, unlike in the first game, I needed to make a timer for when the zombies' waves would come in, since that for some reason didn't exist in the first game. I don't know what I was doing back then. Which I spent like 2 seconds on before calling it quits with the art, and implementing it into the game took like 2 seconds and I never checked that out again. I also had to add a lot of this like gimmicky stuff, like the level where the shovel is introduced and you need to dig all the pea shooters up before you can start playing, or something like the rolling grass in the first few stages. The reason I didn't do this for the first remake is because you honestly wouldn't know if I did it or not. So I also tried having a realistic grass, which didn't last for a while. During this time, I also made one of the game's bigger decisions, if you could call it that, where I changed the camera to an isometric style because it made the game look 10 times better. And after World 1 was done, I ended up losing all of my motivation to pursue this project. Let me explain. Until this point, I somehow, I don't know how, I didn't know how many plants, nor how many zombies, nor how many mini-games there were in this game. There are 50 different types of plants, 25 different types of zombies, and about 30 mini-games I would have to recreate to fully recreate this game. At this point, I knew a lot of people were expecting this game, which is something I never felt before, to come out, but I just wasn't feeling like it. But I had one card up my sleeve. The people that were really expecting this game, that were really wanting this game, that were so hyped for this game, are in my Discord server, which you can join down in the description. You can also see the whole development journey of this game there, self-promo. So why not ask them, I thought. I set up a poll where you could vote between two things. Do I make A, all 28 of the minigames, or B, make local multiplayer for the game? When I was thinking of local multiplayer at this time, I was thinking more of the Xbox Plants vs Zombies local multiplayer, where one player plays the plants and the other plays the zombies, and the people voted for local multiplayer. I was still feeling a bit burned out from working on the game and decided to go on and take a bit of a break to relax from the project, and also work on some other projects in this meantime. Act 2. Local multiplayer. 12 months ago. At this point, the only thing that got me to come back and start developing this game is the local multiplayer. I like to think about how when I was younger, if there was a game like this out there, me and my dad would have probably played it and spent hours and hours on it. And the idea of creating somebody's childhood experience was just too good not to get back into the development and finish this project. I mean, that's what game dev is really about. If only all the bigger companies were to think like that. But that's off the point now. When I came back to this project, I didn't have a clear concept in my mind of how I wanted the local multiplayer to look. I wanted to make something that both players had an equal chance of winning, since the Xbox version was obviously favored towards the plant player. And I would also like the game to be played from the plants and the zombies side, unlike the newest Plants vs Zombies multiplayer, which has the players compete to see who will kill more zombies, once again from the plant side. And the most important thing out of it all, to make a fun game. Just saying, at this point, the game was still planned to be local multiplayer. At this time, I did have a few concepts in my mind, none clear yet. They were all sort of linked off of the original Plants vs Zombies Xbox game, but somebody in my Discord server at this time pointed out to me that there is a game like that already. It's called Plants vs Zombies It's Versus Time, which you should definitely check out. It's got a lot of plans from the newer games, and its development is an awesome guy, which is always the plus in my books. But enough about their game. I ended up getting it down to 3 core parts of this game idea for the local multiplayer. First part of the idea is that both of the players would have their own lawns, but unlike the newest Plants vs Zombies multiplayer game, they would be facing one another. Second part of the idea is that the zombies would come out of these tombstones that would cause the zombie player brains to use. Their tombstones can't be destroyed and will consistently spawn more zombies, which could have turned out badly if I didn't have good balance control, but when I was writing the code I added a lot of these small tweaks that I could always change to make sure that the game is still balanced even with their spawning. And the third part of the idea is I would make the game be played on a timer. To explain this a bit better, I would make the game have these waves, and every time a wave would hit, a huge amount of zombies would come out. The way I made that happen was to force spawn the zombies from all their tombstones, making a huge wave incoming. The zombies would win if they ended up getting past the lawnmowers like in the original game, and the plants would win if they survived all of the zombies' waves. Okay, now that we got this idea, we run into a huge problem. It is a good idea, don't get me wrong, but it's impossible to make in local multiplayer. See, the reason the Xbox Plants vs Zombies game worked was due to the player having to look at only one part of the screen. In my case, we have two lawns, meaning two parts of the screen the players would consistently have to go in between. And they also had a controller, which I couldn't be bothered to introduce into my game. The game I talked about before, Plants vs Zombies, it's versus time, has online multiplayer and is the closest to what I want to develop at this time. That left me with two options. Either I could scrap the idea and get a new one, which obviously I wouldn't do, or I could try making the game online. But I had never before made an online game. At this time, I didn't even know how I could possibly create a server. Would I have to pay someone to run it for me? Could I run it off my PC maybe? Honestly, I had no ideas where to even start. I tried asking around some game dev servers, and with some luck, I did find this tutorial by Blackthorn on Photon, which would have been a huge life server in the future, but for the time being, since I wanted this game to turn out as perfectly as it could, I started work on Alcarto, which was, you would have guessed it, an online game. I wanted to try out something different before just jumping right into making online for this Plants vs Zombies game, but the tutorial I was following just taught me how to set up a server and some basic things, but anytime something new came up like creating an object on both scenes, I was stuck staring at my screen like the biggest buffoon out there. I just didn't know where to start. I ended up finding a lot of dumber ways to do stuff, which kinda worked, kinda being the key word there. But all those kinda working ways took too long to implement, and at this point, I wanted to continue development on my Plants vs Zombies game, but I didn't have the knowledge necessary to do anything. Another thing I haven't mentioned is that my Discord community was behind me, helping me out on every single issue, and I couldn't be more thankful for that. Just wanted to say that. I had some other things I wanted to make for this online remake that didn't necessarily need the online part in them. I also realized I wouldn't be remaking all of the plants from all of the zombies, but rather just the ones that come in the second world of the game, or the night world. So I started work on those plants in hopes I could later figure out how to make the online part work. Most of World 2 was just mushrooms. Actually no, it was all mushrooms. So those weren't hard to make into models since they were mostly just copies of each other's with a few tweaks. It was the same for their UI icons. At this point I ended up making another kind of decisions for the game, that you would only have 5 slots available since there are only 7 zombies in the game, and making there be more slots would just make me have to do more work, which I'm not down to do. Unlike the mushrooms, the zombies were a lot more fun to design. I don't know why. It's also a good time to mention that every single one of the UI elements that was created for the plants, like the slot manager, the seed packs, and some of the other stuff, also needed their zombie counterparts, which I just made by adding a bit of depth to the UI. In my Discord server we had a lot of laughs at some of the modules, like this cursed shroom. I also made trophies for when either of the players won the game. It's either plants win or the zombies take over, no in between. As mentioned before, zombies were a lot of fun to design. Everything from the newspaper zombie to the Michael Jackson zombie. Yes, I did use the old sprites for the design, it was too good not to. They also just had fun and interesting movement to design. I never knew that the dancing zombies don't break formation, meaning that if one stops, they all stop. Before I thought they just went however they wanted to go, but I guess not. The door zombies blocks ice and fume attacks as well, which I never knew. Another thing I didn't know is that the newspaper zombie increases his eating speed as well when he loses his newspaper, which is so surprising to me because it's so broken. Also, this is the time to mention about a sad decision I had to make, sadly, not to add the football zombie. I know, sad, cry about it. I also decided not to add the Gravebuster since there's no purpose for him, and if there was a purpose, it'd be a bit too OP. I also made the Doomshroom not destroy the patch of land it's placed on, but made it have a longer cooldown. and some other small things like that. Now that I'm edging closer to the end of the development of the night stages of the game, this did take a few months though, I was getting more and more anxious about my leave it to the future me choice because I was no smarter on Photon development, even though that was exactly what I was going to have to do in just a few months' time. And that became very clear to me when all that time just went by and I finished everything I had to do. And I was stuck in this limbo where I had all the pieces, and yet the biggest obstacle that I never even thought about clearing I now needed to overcome to get this game to a playable state, to get this game done, to get this game working. At this point, I knew there was only one thing I could do. Act 3. Online multiplayer. 2 months ago. I was tired of leaving everything for future me. Here's what I ended up doing. I felt very disappointed and I didn't know what to do nor how to continue this project. I thought I might just throw this under the bus and let it be in the past. I ended up leaving this project for about 10 months to study Photon and do some other smaller projects since I can't just let the channel die out. But now I was refreshed and ready to get this done. For my studies, I used this super long Photon tutorial that went over about everything you'd ever need. If you're using Photon to make your games, I do recommend checking it out. Even if you do know everything, this guy will find some way to optimize it. I started working without any kind of title screen. I just wanted to connect 2 players into a game and have a game running on both PCs. Simple enough. Since I now know how to instantiate objects using Photon networks, it was pretty simple to get the plants working and the zombies as well, or shadowing. The biggest issue I ended up having in the end was that a lot of plants' code was tied into their animations, which were great when playing single player, but when it was played online, due to a bit of lag, the game sometimes did desync. More on desync later. So I reworked/rewrote their scripts to fit the Photon network sync protocol. Oh yeah, the zombies. Let's get rid of this for now. For about a month now, I've had an issue that caused the zombies to not sync up properly, or just give the other player a way to cheat by liking their PCs, which isn't that good for an online game, if you can see what I mean. And at the time I didn't really see a clear way to solve this issue. I tried Photon Transform View, which transfers the position of the zombies from one PC to the other, which kind of worked, but ended up failing due to this weird bug that just let one of the zombies teleport behind the lawnmowers, making them automatically win the game. There's nothing in my code that would allow this to happen, so I don't know what's happening with that. The only real workaround I found behind this is to kick anybody that doesn't have a frame rate above 10, which should honestly not be that difficult. Even a toaster could run this game at like 30 frames a second. And as I did that, I realized I was getting closer and closer to achieving my final goal. Now that I overcame that huge obstacle that was making me suffer for all this time and making me in a state of consistent anxiety all along, I just needed to finish some smaller things. So I started working on the title screen. I took inspiration from the original Plants vs Zombies title screen. I modeled the tree and the tombstone, I added some settings so that you can full screen the game, change the master volume, and I added a tombstone that leads to my YouTube channel. I also ended up making this password system so that you can set a password to your game. If you want to play with your friends, they can type in the password, damn, you're playing with your friends and not some random guy from the Middle East. If you are the one who's creating the server, you'll be playing the plants, and if you're one who is joining the server, you'll be playing the zombies. I tried symbolizing that with Re and Tombstone. I also had to go through a lot of fandom pages just to get the prices and the descriptions for all the plants, and for the zombies, I had to just trial and error their prices until something felt balanced enough so I could put it into the game. The polish for this game mostly consists of just adding particles to everything and removing the stolen particles that I took from the game. I also decided to remove the outlines since they were bugging the game and making it run at a lower FPS. I added some trails, made the sun look nicer, and so on. I love the Doomshroom exploding effect. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love all the exploding effects. I actually just like all the effects, but the Doomshroom one just feels empowering. I also added this feature so that when a zombie dies, the zombie player gets brains, which they can use to summon even more zombies and take the plant life. well, there it is. The game is finished and you can play it with your friends or with random people online. In the future, I definitely plan on adding some new content to the game. Currently there's only 7 playable zombies, which is a very small amount. Adding new ones is a must do. I also plan on adding new plans from different stages, and the obvious bug fixes and Photon maintenance. Though for the time being, I think I'll just work on some other projects of mine. I have a lot planned and I hope you'll stay tuned for it. You can also check out the whole journey of the development in my Discord server, as said before. Everything since the start to everything I've told so far. One last thing I would like to do before ending this video is thanking my whole community, the Discord people specifically. You know who you are. Thanks for helping me, assisting me, and making this long year journey a fun one. See you all next time.